Welcome to Everyday Conversations with the Brook. I'm Molly, this is Trevor and Haley. And at the Brook, we're a collection of young professionals investigating how to have a great life, great relationships, and know God. So today the conversation we're going to have is based upon relationships and specifically friendships, right? Like this is a conversation that's been coming up a lot. So, Trevor, why do you think this conversation of friendships with young professionals is super important?
To keep that simple, I think the foundation of our future is our friends. It's our friend group. It's the people that surround us. And if you have an idea of where you want to go, the foundation of that is going to be who surrounds you. So I think it's pivotal based off of where you want to go with your life.
Yeah, it's important, the people that you're doing life with. I'd also say, as young professionals, so many people, specifically in Denver, their friends are their family. Most people in Denver are transplants. They've moved here from somewhere else, and so you don't have your family here. So it's super important to have really close friends that you can kind of do life with, right, and grow together with. So
yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So how have you guys seen this conversation come up, just as you guys have been talking with men and women in the Brook recently, about friendships and relationships deepening?
Yeah, I think I have seen so many different facets of this conversation be unpacked or be even questioned, from getting to Denver and figuring out where do you find friends, or even how do you talk to people that you potentially want to be friends with. I have a friend who just moved here less than a month ago, and she's coming to our happy hour that's coming up next, and one of the things she said was, I'm trying to reel it in as I'm talking to people and meeting new people, and not just forcing on them, hey, can we be friends? Because it's towing that line if you don't want to be or look desperate. Yeah. But there is, at the base of it, people are desperate for community and for friendships. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of that. And then it's also the friends that I have right now aren't necessarily pulling me in the right direction or even aligning with where I want to be in life, whatever that looks like. Yeah. So finding encouragement of finding people that are on the same wavelength as you or pursuing the same things, and being brave enough to step out and form new relationships, I think can be really scary.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who want a friend reset. I've been hearing recently after the new year, I was talking to some girls, and one of them was saying I have a ton of friends, a mile wide, but literally an inch deep. She's but who are the couple people that I would just call anytime? I have a ton of friends. I don't have a lot of deep friends. Mm-hmm. I was talking to another girl yesterday that was just kind of saying, hey, I have a boyfriend, and so I've invested a lot of time in that relationship, but I just don't have a lot of actual girlfriends recently because of that. And so I feel this is a conversation that kind of keeps coming up. What about you on the men's side? What are you hearing with just the need for friendships?
Yeah, so I would echo that as well. Is a ton of acquaintances, but not a ton of friends. And I would say these men that are really around us, they are struggling to find guys that challenge them, that make them better. And so I think it really has to do with getting to a place of, I just want people in my life that I can call in an instant, just like you said, but that actually make me better, that challenge me up, that call me out, that inspire me with the way that they're living their life, that aren't just settling for the status quo or what has always been, but they're trying to create a future that doesn't exist yet. And so I think we will find those friends if we actually know the future that we're trying to create. Yeah. If we actually know where we desire to go. If we experience something that we like and are passionate about that, then we can build a friend group around those passions. And so I'm just seeing a bunch of people know a bunch of people, but that doesn't go anywhere. Yeah. But do you really know them, and how are you living, or maybe even laying your life down for them to help them accomplish the dream? I think a nuance is, if you want to see the dreams for your own life become a reality, what does it look like for you to help someone else with theirs? Yeah. And then you'll build a friend, and then you'll actually also get better and grow with them and end up closer to your dream as well. Yeah. And then they'll reciprocate. So I don't know, that's kind of how I'm seeing things played out right now.
Yeah, well, with what you just said, I think that a good starting point for us today is just like, how do you be a good friend?
Yeah.
Like, we all want good friends. We all have this desire. It starts with, how do I be a good friend first, right? Then you're going to actually attract good friends. So, Haley, like, what would you say? Like, hey, how do you be a good friend? Like, what's some practical advice that we could share?
I think there's a lot of ways that as an individual you can first model being a good friend, and I think to be a good friend, to be a healthy friend and have healthy relationships, you need to be a healthy person. And I think that is something that it's really easy to look externally and say, oh, my relationships right now aren't healthy, or this isn't healthy, and you want health so bad, but you haven't taken the step first to look internally and say, am I being that healthy person that I would want to be my friend? And I think also being okay with initiating. There is so much value in having reciprocated friendships, but in order to get there and in order to create new pathways of friendship and relationship, you have to be comfortable with always being the person to initiate. Not saying that like you don't deserve people that will also pursue you and that you won't find that, but I think that there's such an entitlement of wanting everything to come to us and staying in your own bubble and expecting things to change rather than being the one that pursues and that engages and that also is vulnerable, because you won't have deep relationships if you don't wear your heart on your sleeve to a certain extent. There's so much value in having healthy boundaries, but I think we almost double down on calling it a healthy boundary when it actually is just a defense to keep people from getting to a point where they might hurt you. And that's just relationships. Like there's that great quote by C.S. Lewis that is, to love all is to be vulnerable. And the way that you can guarantee that you will not get hurt is by loving at nothing. And so I think that there's so much that as an individual you can model what the relationship you want is like first and pursue health on your own, and it attracts, but it also puts you in this perspective and this position of pursuing other people and calling that out of your relationships.
I love what you said about being intentional. Like, I was just thinking, like, what if we as people were as intentional in seeking and pursuing friendships as we were in finding someone to date or a spouse? Like, think how much time, single young professionals, spend looking for someone to go on a date with or on Hinge. Like, there's this intentionality, but like, what if we took that energy and we put it towards like, I want to be that intentional to find good friends. So I love the idea of there's just like a lot of intentionality that comes behind finding friends. And there's the leadership saying leaders always go first. I think it's the same with friends. Like, if you want good friends, a lot of times you're going to have to be the one to go first.
You sit in the awkward. I think we want our relationships to be fully baked and ready and like amazing, and there's depth and it's what you're longing for whenever, that when things get awkward or you're like, oh, I actually don't know you, that you can want to bail out instead of like letting it be this like new exercise of a new muscle where it feels awkward and uncomfortable until you get and you're both walking in the same stride. So initiating, but also not being discouraged when there's any inkling of awkwardness or
I was on a call with some of our leaders in the Brook the other night, and we were talking about this, and they said, you know what, like I want people in the Brook to know that friendships take time. Like, coming to one community night, one happy hour, one coffee is not enough. Like, we're not in middle school anymore. We're not in college where we literally live with our friends. You might be lucky enough to. But if we're talking about creating new friendships, that keep going back. Anything good that's worthwhile in life takes time. And it's the same with friendships, right? Yeah. What are you seeing with men? Like, what advice would you give to them, men and women in the Brook, as we're talking about this?
I think what you just said is something that no one needs to overlook. If it's of great value, it's going to take an immense amount of energy, time, effort, thought, intentionality. And the quickest way to not get a friend is to be indifferent, is to not care, is to not have thought, is to not be yourself, is to not give some of your heart. And I think if we knew the art of self-disclosure, we would actually go somewhere in a conversation. We would actually go somewhere with our time. I don't like wasting my time. And I don't think anyone does. And I see that a ton with guys is like, they just don't know if it's worth it. They don't know how to build into worth. And the way that you build into like knowing if something's worth it is, how are you practically moving forward without being indifferent and with actually caring, and then self-revealing, self-disclosing with honesty. Like who you actually are, your heart. You said wear your heart on your sleeve. I think, Haley, that is huge. We all have hearts. It's okay to have a heart. You're not a tin man. You're not a robot. You're not something that doesn't have feelings or emotions or aspirations or goals. You have these things. And in relationships, we have to reveal our hearts. We have to share.
Yeah.
And so the way that we're not indifferent, I think, is, both of you have kind of touched on this. And another way to say it is, how are you revealing who you really are? And now, we do need to maybe not reveal everything all at once, which I think is a healthy place to begin. We don't need to, not everybody deserves to know everything, but with appropriateness, we can begin to reveal something. So stop holding back everything and just reveal something.
Yeah.
In appropriateness with where you are, with what you're actually going through. And then the other person, because we're all humans, will feel like they can now reveal something as well.
Yeah.
That's the art of self-disclosure.
Yep.
It's disclosing something about yourself so that someone else can now disclose something about themselves. And the best way to do that is to ask really good questions.
Yep.
And one of my favorite questions to ask right now is, when I hear something that I'm curious about, is to say this: tell me more. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to begin to ask somebody to self-disclose, but we have to be also willing to do the same. So anyways, with guys, I think it's hard to get into a good conversation because we don't know how to have good conversations. But also we need to begin to value good conversations.
Yeah.
And be willing to risk it.
Yeah.
Real relationships will take real risk.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid of it.
Yeah.
And you'll get better as you go. So,
Yeah, ask good questions, self-disclose. I know it can feel awkward to just offer up information about yourself.
Yeah,
but,
that's right.
But that is a good thing, to be able to disclose what's going on inside of you. And then off of that, I think a foundation of any good relationship is trust.
That's right.
So as you are with your friends, as you're self-disclosing, as they're sharing, I think even specifically with girls, I want to say, talk good about them in front of their face, talk good about them behind their back. If you're that
That's
person, people are going to trust you, they're going to value you, and they're going to know that you got their back and you're for them. People want to follow and be friends with people that they can trust and that are trustworthy as you disclose things to them about. So I think our words, not gossiping, uplifting others, people are drawn to that. It's a safe place. And it's like, I want to have another conversation with that person because I trusted them. It went over well.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are building bridges and healing from past relationships that haven't been safe, that have not done that. So you could be the change to having a good relationship in someone else's life. So
Yeah, that's good.
yeah. Well, man, friendships are huge. They're the foundation of everything we do, whether you're single, whether you're married. We need good friends to carry us and support us through life. So this is just one of many conversations that we're going to continue to have. We're talking to all of you weekly, daily. We want to engage in more conversations and kind of felt needs of the Brook of young professionals we want to engage with. So make sure that you're following this. You don't want to miss out on any other conversations. Comment, message us to let us know what other conversations are you hearing about that we can engage in as well. So thank you. We'll talk to you soon.